What's up, guys, and welcome back to the G-Red Show. I'm G-Red. We're talking Barcelona today. We're going to touch on Barcelona versus Sevilla, the last match of the season, what we learned from this match, a few takeaways. We're going to look into next season under Hansi Flick, what we can expect, and a couple other things as well. And then finally, what happened to Barcelona this season? No trophies, what went wrong, the few things that might have went right, which players surprised us, and which players disappointed us this season. But first, we got to touch on briefly the Barcelona versus Sevilla match, last match of the season, so let's get right into it. So before we jump into the Barcelona-Sevilla match, I gotta apologize if I look extra tired. Was out this last weekend celebrating my birthday, and I usually don't really go out and party as much as this weekend, so I apologize if I look extra tired. That's the reason why. But Barca versus Sevilla. Now again, the match really didn't mean anything. I think it was important to the club because you want to send Xavi out on a high note. And as much as I personally think I'm glad he's moving on, and I have nothing against Xavi. He did kind of pull us out of a little dark spot, and last year was, for the most part, a good season for Barca. 2 trophies, Super Cup and La Liga, so he definitely deserves to be treated, I think, with a little more respect. I think he got the short end of the stick a little bit. I will agree on that, but nonetheless, Barcelona won. Great way to send out Xavi, but what did we notice? There was 2 things I mostly noticed. Well, 3, 2 good, 1 bad. How good was Pedri? He was phenomenal. If this is the Pedri Barcelona is getting moving forward, and he's not getting injured, he's honestly one of the best, not one of the best young midfielders in the world. He is one of the best players in the world. If this is the Pedri Barcelona is getting for like 80% of the season, it was a masterclass. He could have had 2 goals. He hits the post with his left foot, and then he had the header. That was a pretty good save. I think if that's like a foot to the left, that's an easy goal. And then the passes he made, some of the through balls he played, some over the top to Lamine Yamal. I mean, at times the commentators were like, wow, he was like Pedri and Lamine Yamal. It looks like prime Iniesta to Pedro back in the day. He was magnificent. And I love Pedri playing in more of that like free role where he's attacking more. He was predominantly standing higher up on the pitch, and you had Gundogan and Christensen, and then Romeo when he came on for Christensen, really more in that holding role. I will say Gundogan wasn't as effective. He's more effective playing more attacking, but Pedri, oh my God. I mean, I don't really have anything else to say other than he was fantastic. How good was that goal that Lewandowski scored? Lamine Yamal entry pass to Pedri. He's literally looking towards the sideline, one touch, back heel right into Cancelo, who's making a run right into the box. Goes right to him. Fake shot by Cancelo. Left foot cross behind the defender right to Lewandowski. Stabs at it outside of the foot goal. It was a prime Barcelona goal. And what's crazy is they did that with such ease. It didn't even look difficult for him. What midfielder is making a pass that Pedri made? There's very, very few players in the entire world that are making that pass. Jude Bellingham's not making that pass. There's no way. Pedri just made that look so easy. It's crazy. If this is what Barcelona is able to do consistently, and this is the Pedri they get, I mean, this is prime Barcelona football at its finest. That's a goal that Messi, Neymar, Suarez, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Rakitic, this is a goal they're putting together. It was an amazing goal. Next, I quickly want to touch on Fermin Lopez. He's not the best at anything, but what he is great at is scoring and providing energy to the club. He's kind of like Xavi in a sense where he's giving it his all. He's on the right side, he's on the left, he's tracking back, he's making a tackle, he's attacking, he's shooting. He's not afraid to shoot. A lot of players aren't going to shoot. He is shooting. He has more goals than any of the midfielders for Barcelona this season, and he's played a fraction of what they've played. We kind of expected Lamine Yamal. I don't think we expected him to be this good, this young, but we already kind of knew he was that wonder kid. Fermin Lopez was, I probably would say, the surprise person of the season for Barcelona, the way he's been able to play in some of these big matches, and he stepped up. I'm excited to see him progress moving forward, and I think he's going to give Barcelona really good minutes next season. He's going to be able to give some of these players like Gundogan, Pedri, Xavi some good rest for next season as well, which is well needed for these players because of their injury situation and Gundogan being a little older. So I'm excited for him and his future, and I was really impressed with those 2 players. My only complaint is the defense was pretty poor. I think Sevilla probably could have scored 1 or 2 more goals. The goal that Sevilla scored, Koundé probably could have prevented in a series goal. You know, it is what it is. Barcelona won. But he was very, very poor for most of the match. And surprisingly, he was great most of the season. I know this is the last match of the season. It doesn't really matter. But he was pretty disappointing. He was probably the worst player for Barcelona. And then I will say I was disappointed with the goal. I thought Ter Stegen should have saved that. I mean, it went right between his legs. And I know Ter Stegen is widely considered one of the best keepers in the world. At times the best. But honestly, he just makes me extremely nervous at times. And as great as he is, I know he's coming off the surgery on his back this year. But I feel like there's a lot of goals that were scored he probably could have saved. And then he plays out of the back too comfortably. I know I've said this before, and a lot of people agree. I mean, I don't know how you don't see it if you don't, but he plays out of the back too comfortably, and he plays out of the back too much. He kind of plays a lot of risky passes and risky balls, and your job as a keeper is to just stop them from scoring, and you don't need to be that good out of the back. Get the ball and just pass it or just cross it way up the field. You don't have to do any of this crazy stuff, because 9 out of 10 times it's not worth it and it's not doing anything. So he makes me really nervous, but mostly Koundé, I was just pretty disappointed with for that match. But let me know what you guys think about that match. Who were your star players? What did you take away from this match, if anything? But now moving into, I guess, what went wrong for Barcelona this season? Who surprised us? Who were we disappointed in? Well, first and foremost, obviously, Lewandowski was disappointing. It is what it is. He was very disappointing. And I'm not going to say, I'm not trying to, so how do I say this? I'm not trying to have his back or make excuses for him, because I've been critical, and I think he has deserved the criticism. We have been given the right to criticize Lewandowski this year. He's been a shell of himself. He's had a bad attitude this season. But I will say for him, I think he stepped into Barcelona assuming that we would kind of adapt to him. It just really wasn't that way. I don't think he's used to this style of football. It's a little different. He's used to playing with some of the best players in the world. He's used to playing right next to Thomas Muller, you know, one of the most underrated center attacking midfielders in the world, one of the most underrated players, I think, of this generation. He's playing with a 16-year-old Lamine Yamal, Ferran Torres, Joao Felix, Rafinha, a young Pedri, a young Xavi. And again, I'm not saying these players aren't great. Xavi, Pedri, and Lamine Yamal, they're gifted footballers. They're a great talent, but they're super young, and they still have a lot to learn, especially last season. They were even younger, and it was his first season, so I just think there was a big disconnect for a lot of the time that he was here. But I will say, I think with the addition of Hansi Flick, he knows how Lewandowski plays, how he wants the ball, how he wants to play. He might be able to implement some different styles of football or different tactics that get Lewandowski more involved, or that allow Barcelona to kind of adapt to him while still being comfortable with the way they play. So I think that's going to be big next season, and I do think this is going to be more beneficial, and Lewandowski will have a better season next year. But I think one of the main things, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and let me know what your main reason for the lack of success Barcelona has, but I'm going to say not having Xavi for pretty much the whole season was a huge blow. I don't think people realize, like kind of how I prefaced with Fermin Lopez, he's not the best at anything. He gives it his all. Gavi's the same way. He's not the best passer, shooter, dribbler. He's just that person that's going to give it his all on his pitch. He's not afraid to slide tackle. He's not afraid to follow you. He's not afraid to get a yellow card. He's not afraid to, run to the other side of the pitch. He's not afraid to attack. He's not afraid to shoot. He will do whatever he can to win the match. And he's that scrappy player, the Energizer Bunny that Barcelona needs, and he elevates the team. I don't know if anyone remembers the Super Cup last year when Barcelona beat Real Madrid. I think it was 3-1. He was their best player. He was all over the pitch. I believe he scored. He scored and or assisted, or one of the two. He had a phenomenal game, and he was a huge reason why Barcelona won. And he's a huge reason why Barcelona was successful, because he just provides that energy and elevates the team just because of his presence on the pitch. That was missed so much. Imagine if Barcelona had him against PSG. He would have been all over the pitch. He would have been right up on Mbappe, right up on Dembele. He would have been right up on Fabian Ruiz, right up on Vitinha, tackling them, trying to win the ball, grabbing their shirts, all over. That would have been huge, especially with 10 men down. He would have gave it his all, and that's what Barcelona needed. And I think that was one of the major reasons why Barcelona was unsuccessful this season. Not having Balde was another reason. He's a better defender than Joao Cancelo, and I think Joao Cancelo proved to us in the big matches in the second half of the season that he needs to become a better defender, and he was a liability against PSG. He was a liability against Real Madrid. And I think Balde, if he's playing on that left, you move Cancelo on the right, who's faster than Koundé and can stick with Mbappe, stick with Bradley Barcola, stick with Vinicius to an extent. He's not as fast as them, but he's faster than Koundé. And then, I don't know, maybe that mitigates some of the goals that were scored on the left-hand side because of the mistakes that Joao Cancelo made. Balde's a better defender. He might have stopped and might have gotten some of those balls. So he might have made some tackles. He might not have lost the ball, lost possession. So again, this is all hearsay, but not having those two players was huge. Frankie de Jong, couple injuries this season. Pedri, not himself. 100% not himself. Injured off and on. That was huge. And then no real CDM, no Busquets, big loss, the big mistake from Araujo. And then I just think a lack of, I don't know the right word, but the wingers were just not it this season. Lamine Yamal was great, but he didn't score much. Ferran Torres was not good this season. Joao Felix, the second half of the season, was not great. Rafinha got better as the season went on, but he still isn't scoring enough what we needed. Now, I do like Rafinha, and I think Barcelona should keep him if they can, because he's going to give good minutes off the bench or can start some matches too. But from an attacking standpoint, it needed to be better. It wasn't consistent enough. They didn't score as many goals. And honestly, when we look at the season last year when Barcelona won La Liga, they only were scored on 20 times. 20 times. Real Madrid was scored on 36 times last year. Barcelona had 88 points last season. Real Madrid had 78. Now, when we look at this season, Madrid had 95 points, which is actually insane. And then Barcelona had 85, which is only 3 less than they did last season. But they had 44 goals scored on this season. I don't understand how that happens, because it's Balde's second season. Now, he did get hurt, so he was only there for half the season. Another year of experience for Araujo and Christensen and Koundé with the club. And then you add Joao Cancelo. I don't understand how the defense could have been that much worse this year with more experience from these players that were newer. And then you add Cancelo, maybe not having Busquets, that definitely was a hole for sure. And I assume that is a contributing factor, but 24 more goals, I don't know if it's that big a difference, but that was a huge reason. Barcelona's defense was a very, very big liability this season. There was a lot of matches where teams scored very, very early in either the first half or the second half, and then Barcelona was trying to play from behind the entire match, and it was very tough because teams were playing the right way and they had the right formations to mitigate Barcelona from scoring. So that was an issue in itself. So I think those were some of the key takeaways. And then obviously Xavi, it was just very inconsistent. I don't think he's ready to be at the top just yet. And again, there's people that want to criticize and say, well, every manager has to start somewhere. Pep started somewhere. They started somewhere. But I'm back and forth. I don't dislike Xavi. I think I want to see a change. I want to see a change in the club. And he's still always going to resort to the more possession-based football, whereas I think Barcelona needs to try and go after different players that they might not have gone for in the past. They need to try to adapt to more of, you don't need possession, 70% of the possession. Have 50%, 45%, but play composed, play structured, and when you win the ball, attack with a purpose and attack the goal and plan the counterattack and make the right plays. You don't have to just pass the ball sideways and backwards and just pass for no purpose like they do for a lot of the time. So quickly looking into next season, I know we haven't heard any official transfer rumors yet besides Hansi Flick coming in as the new manager. I'm excited about it. Obviously, him not having much success for the German national team with the players they had is a little alarming. I'm not going to hold him to that because it's a little different than club, like I prefaced before. He's had success with Bayern Munich. He's coached some great players. He's coached with Lewandowski in the past. Maybe Kimmich comes over. He's coached Kimmich. So, again, I'm excited. If Barcelona makes 2 or 3 good moves and they sell a couple players, I think they are in a good spot and can definitely compete for any domestic trophy and win the Champions League next season. I'm not going to say that's something that they're going to be able to accomplish, but making the semifinal for the team that they have, if they make the right moves, I don't think it's that out of the question. I really don't. And I will say, out of all the 3 players, Frankie, Rafinha, and Araujo, that Barcelona is linked to potentially selling, it hurts me the most saying this, but I think Frankie de Jong, I really don't think they're going to miss him as much as they do if they bring in the right player, because if Xavi and Pedri are healthy, and then you have Fermin Lopez and Gundogan, and then you can bring in Kimmich, and then maybe even Bernardo Silva, I just don't see him hurting that much without Frankie de Jong. And he's my favorite player. I want to keep him, but if they're able to bring in some of these other players by selling him, I'm not against it. It's a very tricky question because I don't want him to leave, but out of the 3, you really can't let Araujo leave because of the hole that he's going to leave in defense. And then I guess Rafinha, I think people will miss Rafinha and realize the minutes he gives you and the runs he makes and the chances he creates is way more than Ferran Torres. So I would get rid of him over Rafinha, but it's a really interesting judgment call. But I don't think Frankie de Jong, if you don't have him next season, you're not going to be any worse off than you were this season. You're really not. And if Pedri can play the way that he's been playing the last few weeks and he can play consistently like that's huge. That's literally what Barcelona needs, and that's what can take them to the next level. Pedri can be that X factor. He's that good. So let me know what you guys think about all these different topics down below. Expectations for next season. Assuming that they bring in, for example, Kimmich, Bernardo Silva, and like Nico Williams. Expectations then. And then what do you guys think? What went wrong for Barcelona this season? Who stood out to you? And then who was disappointing? And then what do you think the main reason for Barcelona's lack of success was this season? Let me know your thoughts down below. If you made it this far, I know this was a longer video. I appreciate you guys sticking around. And I hope to see you guys back here next time on the G-Red Show.